Welcome back to Sail Hub. Today we've got something completely new, and this is the first of, I think, hopefully many Sail Hub debates. And we're on the we are on the sailing ship Voyager, and we're going to talk about cats versus monohulls. So in the red corner we've got Ben and Elena, who are esteemed catamaran sailors. I know they've spent a lot of time on a monohull as well, but we'll not mention that right now. And in the blue corner, we've got Andy and Ed.
What, yeah? What's going on there?
These guys have got their own podcasts and YouTubes and Instagrams and all that going on. We'll link that all in the description below. But let's get started off right now and say, why did you have a catamaran?
What compelled you?
So it'll, yeah.
Because it's better.
Well,
there we go. So we're obviously going to have to talk about the pros and cons, the negatives, the positives, both. So you've got a cat, you had a monohull. Big change, why?
So we've lived on a mono, a 30-foot mono, for 10 years. And then I always hated catamarans, like all mono people do.
Yeah, me too, yeah.
Yeah, like everyone.
still to this day.
Hang on, you're not meant to be biased in this, you're meant to be...
Yeah.
You're on the blue corner? Are you serious?
I'm the referee, I'm just here to make sure I'm moderating.
Can you
this.
Just move over to the side. You just gave it up.
You're already here. You're already here.
You already decided.
Fair enough, but I thought catamarans were big enough we could all fit in.
That's a good one, actually.
So I hated catamarans, but when I was on the catamaran for the first time, it was changing my life. I mean, it's just better. Everything is better on the catamaran.
So you had a monohull for a long time. Mm-hmm. What made you think, let's go catamaran?
Okay, I always wondered, how is it to be on a catamaran? How does the catamaran sail?
Yeah.
It must be weird. It doesn't sail properly. Cannot go as close to the wind. Blah blah blah. All these things that you say about a catamaran. But
True.
Possibly.
Oh yeah, shit.
Yeah. Well, what would you say?
Can I move to the other corner? I'm a mono.
No, I want to stay here. Stay with me. Everything is stable. I mean, it's. We could have this podcast in 25, 30 knots on the Atlantic Ocean, and everything would stay exactly like it is.
Yeah.
Bam. On a monohull, everything would be flying around. Nothing would be like it is now. You could sail on a catamaran. You could sail exactly like this.
Yeah.
With everything on the tables, with everything around, no problems.
So there's a convenience factor there.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to put things away. Like when you're on a monohull, I'm sure we can all agree, it's like, right, we're going sailing, put everything in the cupboard.
Put everything in cupboards. Yeah.
Properly.
Everything has to
But
be.
it's
Every
still,
single day when you want to leave.
It's still throw away.
Yeah,
Like
Livability in that sense.
It's no good putting your child in a cupboard. It's not acceptable.
Well, I mean, in some cases it is acceptable. It depends.
You do that.
I mean, I'm not going to say that on the internet, but let's be honest.
There's got to be times when it helps.
There's got to be times when it helps.
Okay. So livability is good in that you've got that massive space. I mean, there's no getting around that fact. Of course, monohulls are smaller, catamarans are massive. You've got a huge galley, you've got a huge place to live, living space, room for guests, and all the rest of it, right?
I guess it's the living space upstairs. What's really important for us? The light. So when we always say, when you have a monohull, then you go into the basement. You walk down into the
You
basement.
got a problem with my basement, mate? What's wrong with my basement? I like my basement. Gave you a cheese sandwich. Bugger up.
And you're always upstairs. We have the saloon. I mean, I guess every catamaran has the saloon, and we got the 360-degree view. You can see everything. Always, you cook your spaghetti pesto, whatever, and you can talk to the people outside. You're always involved, or you're always communicating with the group, with everyone around. And here you have to, on your boat, Andy.
On your boat, Andy.
These are the two main things, anyways, that we really love on a catamaran. Bam. There it is.
Livability.
Livability, space is a big thing, obviously. So what do you think about that? What do you guys think?
What else do you have to say? That's it.
I mean,
Discussion done.
You start, I'll finish.
I mean, you take a look at this boat. You know, there's a lot of room on this one.
So
What,
just
you mean my hole?
A lot of basement, you mean?
Yeah.
So just for reference, the basement that we are currently sitting in right now is, 54 DS, so it's a pretty big monohull. So
Small.
Very big and
It's a very big basement.
Very big.
It's a discussion.
I mean, there's tons of room to walk around. I'm not smashing. I mean, I'm 6'3". Most boats I'm going to smash my head in.
You're a 20-year-old athlete.
Exactly. Yeah.
You've got room.
Exactly.
you're
I've got
finding-
room to walk
straight
around.
away you're finding you got a lot of room in a big monohull.
Yeah, I'm not cramped. Most boats I go on, I'm ducking, walking around. This, I'm up, head up. I'm not cramped by any means on this.
Okay. What do you think, Andy?
I think for livability, a catamaran obviously has a lot more familiarities with a normal house, and I think that's why you get a lot of people moving on to catamarans, because it's definitely an easier transition. Like, the reason why we ultimately went with a monohull is I'm a fan of classic boats, for one. I just think sailboats are beautiful. Not saying that catamarans aren't, but I think the lines of a boat.
It's that picture that when people go to look at a boat, they dream about a boat. When you say boat, you think monohull.
Yes.
Yeah.
Generally, yeah. Like, no offence, because I actually
No, absolutely.
for equality,
Yeah.
I think it's a fantastic sailboat. It's an amazing catamaran. But for me, like, the beauty of a sailboat is in like a traditional monohull. Probably what you would associate with more of like a classic sailboat.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, for sailing to winds, that's one thing which I would say definitely like a catamaran would struggle with. You can turn on one engine and then you can pinch a bit higher. But I don't know, how many degrees to the wind can you get?
60?
60.
Or even, I guess 60. It would be 60.
60, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's probably the only thing that you could say is the disadvantage of a catamaran.
So what about-
Going close to the wind.
It's not comfortable to
I mean-
sail against the wind.
So what we're basically establishing here is that a catamaran is exceptionally comfortable. To live aboard at anchor, to sail on, and even like your view at night, you've got a 360-degree view, you can see where you're going, it's really beautiful, easy to sail, it's too easy. And the majority of sailors who are cruising full time are going downwind. Of course, you guys can only sail to 60 degrees, which is a fair disadvantage if you're, say, sailing for a weekend. Maybe not the boat to choose if you're weekend sailing or something like that. You're going to go sail downwind to somewhere you want to come back. You're basically going to be predominantly on engine if you're going back against the wind.
True that, yeah.
And so with all that in mind, this sounds a perfect boat for the cruiser.
Yeah, it's a
So let's
perfect
just ask the
boat.
question, what made you choose a monohull?
Well, sailability, I mean, like, when we purchased this boat, our idea is to sail around the world, and, obviously we're starting on the east side of the Mediterranean. Winds are completely unpredictable. I think downwind sailing is definitely more comfortable on a catamaran. I think any other point lift sailing is more comfortable on a monohull. Like, I've sailed a lot of catamarans on a beam reach, and I think that's particularly uncomfortable because you are literally flying.
That's not a comfortable feeling. No.
Yeah, you are flying around, whereas on a monohull you are basically stuck in one dead position. You're just cruising through and cutting through the waves. But yeah, like in my opinion, if you're going to do like a trade wind circumnavigation, obviously you've got the benefits of being on a catamaran. You can cruise downwind, that's very comfortable, but you're not always going to get that. It's probably very rare you're going to get that, to be honest. Like if you're crossing the Atlantic or something like that, and you can rely on those like November, December, January type of winds, I think that's fine. But yeah, otherwise you're going to be beaten into it. And I think when it comes to like if you were crossing, this is just from my personal perspective, like taking into account safety and stuff like that. If you were doing an ocean crossing and you did get caught out in some terrible weather and you need to turn your engines on, it does help if you are able to sail a hell of a lot close to the wind rather than having to turn your engines on.
Yeah.
Because you can't.
Well, that kind of directly brings me to what my next point was, which is heavy weather.
Yeah.
So when we look into weather above the 40s, and things are starting to get a little bit hairy, and we're looking at maybe even thinking about storm jibs and trysails, I think the monohull's very forgiving. So for more
It's completely
higher latitude sailing, you're going to round up to the wind, and that's kind of what's going to happen. How do you guys find that on a cat? Would you agree that maybe a point where the monohull would excel?
We cannot really say anything to that because we haven't had any 40 knot winds or more on our cat. The maximum was like 35, 50, 40.
Yeah, 40 maybe.
But it was not. I mean, then we had like a few hours.
Nothing. It's if you have like a 35 or 40 knots, it was still doable. So, but everything.
Again, it always depends on the situation, and I would also say that on my old boat, the 30-foot monohull, I think the easiest would be on a small. The smaller the boat is, the easier it will be in rough weather, because then you don't have a lot of sail, you don't have lots of area where the wind can pick up. I mean, on my 30-foot full keel mono, it was always perfectly safe in every condition. I don't know how it would be on a 50, 60-foot boat, and how the movement would be. I have no experience in that, and also with the catamaran, we don't have any experience with that.
So having quite a lot of experience on both monos and cats, would you feel more comfortable, say, if you were going into a severe gale, a 9, let's say, would you feel more comfortable doing that on a mono, or would you feel more comfortable on a cat?
For now, I would say on a mono.
Yeah.
But I don't know how it is on a catamaran.
I think most people would for a cruising cat. I think the general consensus is most people would feel a bit more chilled on a monohull, because it's just a little bit more of a docile creature, let's say.
You know that the boat is always doing the right thing, so more or less. When you're doing the wrong thing on a catamaran, it maybe it will cost you everything. So when the boat is when you turn around, that's it. It will never been up again.
Right.
Yeah, that's a point, and you're not on a mono. You will feel it. Yeah. You can feel it because you know how to how it's like to put the sails.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So as you're heeling over,
I will put a little bit more. But on a catamaran, you can hear it now. We after 3 years we hear it like a.
You can hear it in the hull when the water.
You get a feeling of when the rig's loaded.
You feel it a bit, but you hear it. But the boat doesn't show it to you because there's no.
Doesn't get over.
I've never seen this anywhere on a monohull, but like you said, you can always tell when you have to reef, or put in a reef, or reduce the sails. But on a monohull, you have a list.
No, catamaran.
Catamaran. It's 25 knots. Put in the first reef because you don't feel it. I mean, you can maybe see.
I mean, that's probably another thing is that monohulls they're. I mean, cats are like fairly forgiving. Sort of, if it's light winds, you can sort of get away with a lot of stuff. But monohulls, they will start to lean over, and if you broach a monohull, sort of capsize almost, sail comes down to the water, it'll come back up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the ultimate safety.
I mean, if you get a cat to that point, you're obviously doing something quite wrong. But if you do get to a cat to that point, it's not going back up.
It's lost.
Because it relies on two floats to stay upright. So if you go over that. That's it.
There's some interesting things happening with that, like Cyclops Marine they've got some really interesting things in their turnbuckles where they are directly putting tension measurements straight to the chart plotter now, so they can tell you when your rig is tensioned enough or strained enough, let's say, to tell you when to reef, which is good, but that's quite expensive, which probably rolls straight into the next thing with a cat versus a monohull.
Price.
Yeah.
That is a big. Well, like, look, this is a 54-foot monohull that's pretty spacious. Like 10 people could live on this no problem. We would need to spend like 6 times the amount. To get an equivalent catamaran. I think another interesting point is like how many. Like if you were to take the catamaran market now, and the catamaran market and the monohull market are very similar at the moment. If you look at what's actually hitting the market, vast majority is just either production cats or production monos. Made by the same company, actually. Like, there's not really much in it, to be honest.
That's very true, yeah.
Yeah, they're all made by Beneteau. But it's like, how many of these boats would you, not comfortably be able to take into, like, high northern or high southern latitudes, but would you be able to? Not comfortably, would it be the right thing to do, but could you? So, if you were going to sail to the North Pole, I would not be comfortable, but I would feel confident enough that you could take an average Genoa or an average Beneteau or Bavaria or something like that, because you do know, worst case, if the weather is terrible, okay, maybe you'll hit the water and you'll come straight back up. You don't see any catamarans up there. This is why Garcia have popped out this new, the new aluminium hull with the idea of being able to take it basically outside of the trade wind zones.
I mean, it's a really interesting prospect, this exploration cat. I mean, you start looking at exactly what Andy's saying there. Building a catamaran for high latitude sailing, I mean, of course it's made of aluminium, that's one thing, but it's the writing moment that I think puts a lot of people off.
The same.
That general feeling of, I need to know what my rig's doing. So when you're having a sleep down below, if you're short-handed, you might be thinking, oh, is the rig loaded, is the rig not loaded? And there is no give, because the boat can't heel, all the weight goes straight into the rig, which is potentially catastrophic. But I'm presuming the Garcia have got around it by over-rigging it, being made out of aluminium, so it's got more stiffness to the entire structure, let's say. But quickly going back to the cost thing as well, moorings and the likes. I mean, of course, when you look at putting your boat somewhere for a long time, and many people, I'm sure, will say with catamarans, the beauty of them is you can go in so shallow because the draft of the boat is considerably less than the average monohull. I mean, let's ignore lift keels and all that for now, but you can probably avoid mooring fees for a lot of the season. But when you do have to do it, I think it's quite expensive, right?
In the Med, it's always 1.5 more than
in the winter, or twice the price even. But
well, you have got twice the size of boat.
Yeah,
so like,
I mean,
you know what I mean?
You've got a whole other hull there.
this is when you said it's more like an apartment. Well, it looks a little bit different
but
than
that's
a mono.
a good thing.
Yeah,
and you have the light.
If you're going to live aboard, then an apartment is the way to
stable.
go. I mean, I think what we're establishing is that maybe it's a bit more of an expensive apartment, because 38-footer for 38-footer, the catamaran's probably going to cost more. The maintenance is probably going to cost more because the rig gets loaded more.
Two engines.
Yeah,
Two
that's
engines.
the big one.
Double security.
The marine engine is.
I never want to have one engine again.
No,
I mean,
no.
the two engines is
And then the other.
Peace of mind.
I know I'm on the other side, but at the end of the day, you know, if the rig breaks, you've got engines.
We had to change the sail drive oil once.
Yeah.
So we beached the catamaran, had 6 hours to change the sail drive oil. Say again?
Yeah.
You did it on the beach.
Yeah.
It was,
Well, it was
yeah.
with low tide coming.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
It was really stressful.
For us, you know, trying to do sail drive oil, you know, filling it up, it's a pain in the arse.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Like, you have to fill it so slow because
Yeah, the water was to our knees already when we screwed in the last bolt, but
It was
There you go,
it
two
takes so long
engines.
to
Don't do it.
One at a time.
I think catamarans are still relatively new. Like, you know, when you look at like lagoon, like 450s, and it's like, oh, the bulkhead's crack and all this. Well, it's like, how long have they actually been making those things
Yeah,
for?
there's
you
a
know?
lot of research and development going on, a lot of trial and error, I think, at this moment. There's a lot of flex going on and whatnot. There's a lot to come. But on the same side of that, when we're looking at comfortable monohulls, there's a lot going on there with the new monocats sort of coming into the world as well. These huge beam boats with
I mean,
this.
they're useless. They're like the worst of both worlds.
You have a valid point there. I can do that.
Like, you've sailed
It
a lot of
doesn't
these
make
things.
sense.
I've never sailed what would be classed as a full-on monocat, but
Totally
there's probably a reason that I haven't.
a lot of women would prefer a catamaran because of maybe it looks different,
would say that?
maybe it looks
In
more like
general, people like the space, don't they? And I think most people who are squeezed into a box or down into the dungeon or whatever you want to call going into a monohull, people do feel claustrophobic. And that feeling of space and lightness, you could say that's a feminine thing, but I think it actually most fellas would agree that it's a nicer thing having more light.
More light and more space is nice, but I will back you up. I have been on multiple boats, and you turn around to I've just serviced it or whatever, and you turn around to the customer and you think, you know, you've only done like 5 hours in a year. That's like nothing, you know. And you think have you done much in the year? No. You go, you know, just like, you know, I'm not trying to be rude, but like, why? And he goes, my wife doesn't like the boat. You know, not trying to like sort of like, you know, sexist or anything here, but you know, you're starting to get a bit weaker. Your balance might be starting to go. You're getting a bit old, you know, sort of thing. You know, if you just go out for the day, you want a cup of tea. You know, so if the boat's rolling around and you can't make a cup of tea, you know, what's the point?
Very important. A cup of tea
Exactly.
or beer in Germany.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm trying to figure out what's being sexist or ageist, to be honest with you.
Always.
Anyway, I think we're wrapping up now.
Old women us.
But very good. Very nice.
Let's just wrap this up before we continue. I think we've established right now that so catamarans are good for space and comfort and chilling out and maybe long-term cruising. And if you want to get more performance out of your boat, go for a monohull. A cat's going to cost you more. A monohull is going to be a bit easier in that respect as well. But in general, it kind of boils down to where you're sailing and where you're going and what you want from it. High latitude sailing, you're probably going to go for a monohull, be safe. And let's say catamarans, you want to be somewhere that's a bit more chilled, just a bit more, let's say. So I think that's pretty much it for this episode. We'll wrap it up with that. The only thing I'm going to say is,
Ocean Cruises podcast, shout out.
don't forget that. And don't forget, what's your channel as well?
Elena Und Ben.
Is that Instagram or is that on?
It's everything. It's everything.
No, it's like
So be sure to
barefoot sailing.
Barefoot sailing. Yeah, true.
The links will be in the description.
Whatever.
I'm just going to leave you with one thing on this one, which is, where does the trimaran stand? We'll see you next time, guys. Like and subscribe. And like and subscribe these guys as well.
Nice.
Adios.